But Rob Jacobson, who does main editing here for us on the films, he goes to Whole Foods a few times a week. He likes it. I like it, too. It's nice, a little overpriced. But he goes in there, and he saw this on the store shelf. The Case for Killing Granny Newsweek. And while he's waiting in line, he flips it open, and it says, curbing excessive end-of-life care is good for America. And it's a eugenics argument about killing grandma. And he gets up there, and he knows the girl at the counter. Guess there's a little flirtation going on there, according to Rob. Rob's quite the ladies' man around here. But the point is that she said, oh, the Case for Killing Granny. And he said, what, you think that's interesting? And she said, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And he said, don't you understand this is eugenics? They want to do this to you too. And she goes, yeah, there's too many people. And he said, but do you want to die? And she said, well, I guess so. Yes, I guess I need to be killed. And he said, are you joking? And she said, no. So here was one saying humans are so bad. That's like Dr. Pianka, one of the heads of the biology department at UT. His graduate students have written me letters threatening me and bragging that Dr. Pianka only wants to kill 90% of us. I want to kill everyone. Here's my graduate paper. And you go read their graduate paper, and then you find out they're working in bioweapons now for the U.S. government. I mean, I got people writing me threatening letters that are doctors of biology working in bioweapons. And you start looking at who heads up the bioweapons programs. They call it biodefense because it's double-edged. And they're all eugenicists, just like the head of the Human Genome Project, Mr. Watson, who was in my film Endgame 2.5 years ago. A year after it came out, I said he was a eugenicist because of his writings. He came out and said blacks aren't even human, basically. Now, guess who writes about him and others admiring him? John P. Holdren, White House science czar. What did Obama do? He kicked in more funding for China's forced abortions on record and for abortions in Africa, where they say you get food stamp money in Africa, say in Nigeria, but you got to be sterilized or you got to have an abortion. Now, here's the deal. Newsweek, the last two issues, had one about your baby is a racist. And it said all whites are racist because the Western world is predominantly white. And because we use more resources, we're all bad and racist. We've got to stop having kids. Using guilt, saying stop having kids. But the real eugenics is pointed at the third world, keeping them from developing. But see, they sell it to white yuppies as, oh, we got to give the blacks and Latin Americans and Asians more. So I want to go over this today. But that was the issue 2 weeks ago. This is the September 21st. It always comes out a few days early. Newsweek, the Case for Killing Granny. If you're watching a simulcast right now at prisonplanet.tv, if you're listening to the radio, you can just go to any book stand store or go to newsweek.com and look at the latest issue. The Case for Killing Granny, and it's got a computer plug unplugged on the cover. And it says, now I covered Newsweek a month ago, had a thing about how beautiful it was that people were committing suicide for the earth. It had a picture of the Grim Reaper leading some. I mean, this is Soylent Green, taking you away to die. But there's a whole nother wrinkle to this, and we're going to go over it when we come back after this quick break. Took my kids to Slitterbahn the last day it's open, drove back today, get on the treadmill to jog, turn on CNN, and they've got a truth detector from lies to truth. Lies over on the green side, red is a lie over on the left side. And it was clearly slanted. It said, are there death panels? Lie. Do they restrict who you can see? Lie. Does it take over medical care? Lie. Does it restrict care to the old? Lie. And I've read the bill. It does all of that. But more importantly, it gives the different federal departments the control to, by fiat, do whatever they want. It gives them dictatorial power and allows them to take over healthcare. And I've had medical doctors on probably, 20 times the last few months or more, gone over it all. But here they are in Newsweek saying, kill grandma. And then I'm watching CNN, and they're there pacifying people, going, none of this is true, none of this is true, none of this is true. Let me tell you what's true when we get back from these people's own sickening control freak mouths. See, in the religion of the control freak, nothing gets them more exciting than killing people and deciding who lives and dies. The good old folks at new silver solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. If you go back to 2,300 years ago and you read the writings of Plato and other philosophers, they believed that Greece and the city-states were overpopulated then, and that war was necessary to reduce the numbers of the population who were, quote, this is from Plato, crushing the breast of earth. In fact, if you search engine the term Plato, crushing the breast of earth, you can read where he wrote that in his tome, his lengthy treatise, Plato's Republic. And Greek ideas then formed the Roman Empire. They were picked up by the Egyptians. They spread all over the world. The term eugenics was taken from two Greek words. Now, if you believe when there was less than 1 million people on the earth total, that we were overpopulated, you believe we're overpopulated now, when there are 6,800,000,000 people on the face of the planet. This is a very sophisticated issue. Certainly, and very nuanced. Certainly, a lot of our technologies are dirty. They do pollute the environment. They hurt us. They toxify Homo sapiens sapien, not just fish, not just birds, not just other animals. Clearly, cutting down a bunch of rainforests isn't good. Clearly, we shouldn't clear cut the sequoias. Clearly, conservation is a good idea. But if you understand that the modern conservation movement was founded over 100 years ago by the Rockefeller families and the British royal house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, also known as Windsor, that they openly have written that they would create an environmental movement to make people value the earth so that people wouldn't have as many children, and so that, quote, neo-feudalism, they use this term, I didn't coin it, and serfdom could be brought back in. If you study England 800 years ago, 500 years ago, 300 years ago, France, Japan, 500 years ago, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, they had serf systems under a feudal system of government. The people were basically slaves. Take England 500 years ago. Serfs were kept on about 2% of the land, over 90% of the population. They were called the little people by the royals because on average they were about 2 feet shorter due to bad nutrition than the nobles. And the nobles wrote about how they would keep the people down and under their control. Julius Caesar wrote about this too in areas they'd captured: Germania, Gaul, Britannia, Albion, other areas, Judea. They would use food as a weapon. And they said if we keep the people at a subsistence level near starvation, they won't breed too much, so we have uprisings. And they said they will be so weak and pathetic they won't be able to resist you. And you can take the better ones as house slaves. Oh, yeah, they didn't invent house slaves in this country. The Romans and Egyptians and Babylonians and others would take the best slaves for themselves into the house. The rest were kept out on the plantations, the Roman plantations and others. And our entire plantation system came from Roman manuals. You can go study this in the history of U.S. and also Caribbean, Central, South American slavery. And the transatlantic slave trade that started about 485 years ago. Started about 500 plus, but really got going about 485 years ago. And so that system was brought here, but with the African, because whites said we can't enslave whites anymore. Even though in many provinces of what is Germany today, like the main war province or county of Prussia, up until only about 120, you can look at 125, 130 years, forget the exact date, Hessian Germans were slaves, raised the Hessian slaves were brought up to be war slaves. That's where you get the term Hessian boots, big black boots. The Nazis, jack boots, wore Prussian boots or Hessian boots. And their uniforms were dark blue or dark gray. Hence the German army, later once Germany was unified, adopted the Prussian model of a slave army, a warrior slave army.